democratic processes and the leader of the free world. Instead of showing us her substance and character, the DNC and its media organs engineered a surge of popularity for Vice President Harris based upon, well, nothing. No policies, no interviews, no debates, only smoke and mirrors and balloons in a highly produced Chicago circus. There in Chicago, a string of Democratic speakers mentioned Donald Trump 147 times just on the first day. Oh, who needs a policy when you have Trump to hate? In contrast, at the RNC convention, President Biden was mentioned only twice in 4 days. I do interviews every day. Many of you have interviewed me. Anybody who asks gets to interview me. Some days I do as many as 10. President Trump, who actually was nominated and won an election, also does interviews daily. How did the Democratic Party choose a candidate that has never done an interview or debate during the entire election cycle? We know the answers. They did it by weaponizing the government agencies. They did it by abandoning democracy. They did it by suing the opposition and by disenfranchising American voters. What most alarms me isn't how the Democratic Party conducts its internal affairs or runs its candidates. What alarms me is the resort to censorship and media control and the weaponization of the federal agencies. When a U.S. president colludes with or outright coerces media companies to censor political speech, it's an attack on our most sacred right of free expression, and that's the very right upon which all of our other constitutional rights rest. President Biden mocked Vladimir Putin's 88% landslide in the Russian elections, observing that Putin and his party controlled the Russian press and that Putin prevented serious opponents from appearing on the ballot. But here in America, the DNC also prevented opponents from appearing on the ballot. And our television networks exposed themselves as Democratic Party organs. Over the course of more than a year, in a campaign where my poll numbers reached at times in the high 20s, the DNC-aligned mainstream media networks maintain a near perfect embargo on interviews with me. During his 10-month presidential campaign in 1992, Ross Perot gave 34 interviews on mainstream networks. In contrast, during the 16 months since I declared, ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, and CNN combined gave only 2 live interviews from me. Those networks instead ran a continuous deluge of hit pieces with inaccurate, often vile, pejoratives and defamatory smears. Some of those same networks and colluded with the DNC to keep me off the debate stage. Representatives of those networks are in this room right now, and I'll just take a moment to ask you to consider the many ways that your institutions have abdicated this really sacred responsibility, the duty of a free press to safeguard democracy and to challenge always the party in power. Instead of maintaining that posture of fierce skepticism toward authority, your institutions have made themselves government mouthpieces and stenographers for the organs of power. You didn't alone cause the devolution of American democracy, but you could have prevented it. The Democratic Party's censorship of social media was even more of a naked exercise of executive power. This week, a federal judge, Terry Doty, upheld my injunction against President Biden, calling the White House's censorship project, quote, the most egregious violation of the First Amendment in the history of the United States of America. Doty's previous 155-page decision details how just 37 hours after he took the oath of office, swearing to uphold the Constitution, President Biden and his White House opened up a portal and then invited the CIA, the FBI, CISA, which is a censorship agency, it's the center of the censorship industrial complex, DHS, the IRS, and other agencies to censor me and other political dissidents on social media. Even today, users who try to post my campaign videos to Facebook or YouTube get messages that this content violates community standards. 2 days after Judge Doty rendered his decision this week, Facebook was still attaching warning labels to an online petition calling on ABC to include me in the upcoming debate. They said that violates community standards, their community standards. The mainstream media was once the guardian of the First Amendment and democratic principles, and it's joined this systemic attack on democracy. The media justifies their censorship on the grounds of combating misinformation, but governments and oppressors don't censor lies. They don't fear lies. They fear the truth, and that's what they censor. And I don't want any of this to sound like a personal complaint, because it's not. For me,
we are going to leave this and come back to it if we can. It continues, though, on our C-SPAN Now video app. The U.S. House of Representatives is holding an expected brief session today.
Hand me the remote. I don't know why they would break away from this. That is just absolutely senseless here. Mike Church here with you. Let me see if I can get this back here now.
There we go.
Okay, it's back.
A joke. Here's the good news. While mainstream outlets denied me a critical platform, they didn't shut down my ideas, which have especially flourished among young voters and independent voters, thanks to the alternative media. Many months ago, I promised the American people that I would withdraw from the race if I became a spoiler. A spoiler is someone who will alter the outcome of the election but has no chance of winning. In my heart, I no longer believe that I have a realistic path to electoral victory in the face of this relentless systematic censorship and media control. So I cannot in good conscience ask my staff and volunteers to keep working their long hours or ask my donors to keep giving when I cannot honestly tell them that I have a real path to the White House. Furthermore, our polling consistently showed that by staying on the ballot in the battleground states, I would likely hand the election over to the Democrats, with whom I disagree on the most existential issues: censorship, war, and chronic disease. I want everyone to know that I am not terminating my campaign. I am simply suspending it and not ending it. My name will remain on the ballot in most states. If you live in a blue state, you can vote for me without harming or helping President Trump or Vice President Harris. In red states, the same will apply. I encourage you to vote for me. And if enough of you do vote for me, and neither of the major party candidates win 270 votes, which is quite possible, in fact, today our polling shows them tying at 269 to 269, and I could conceivably still end up in the White House in a contingent election. But in about 10 battleground states where my presence would be a spoiler, I'm going to remove my name, and I've already started that process and urge voters not to vote for me. It's with a sense of victory and not defeat that I'm suspending my campaign activities. Not only did we do the impossible by collecting 1 million signatures, we changed the national political conversation forever. chronic disease, free speech, government corruption, breaking our addiction to war, have moved to the center of politics. I can say to all who have worked so hard in the last year and a half, thank you for a job well done. Three great causes drove me to enter this race in the first place, primarily. And these are the principal causes that persuaded me to leave the Democratic Party and run as an independent, and now to throw my support to President Trump. The causes were free speech, the war in Ukraine, and the war on our children. I've already described some of my personal experiences and struggles with the government's censorship industrial complex. I want to say a word about the Ukraine war. The military industrial complex has provided us with a familiar comic book justification like they do on every war, that this one is a noble effort to stop a supervillain, Vladimir Putin, from invading the Ukraine and then to thwart his Hitler-like march across Europe. In fact, tiny Ukraine is a proxy in a geopolitical struggle initiated by the ambitions of the U.S. neocons for American global hegemony. I'm not excusing Putin for invading Ukraine. He had other options. But the war is Russia's predictable response to the reckless neocon project of extending NATO to encircle Russia, a hostile act. The credulous media rarely explain to Americans that we unilaterally walked away from 2 intermediate nuclear weapons treaties with Russia and then put nuclear-ready Aegis missile systems in Romania and Poland. This is a hostile act. And that the Biden White House repeatedly spurned Russia's offer to settle this war peacefully. The Ukraine war began in 2014 when U.S. agencies... By
the way, I just want to jump in here real quick because I have been saying this for over 2 years now, that Putin had back-channeled 2 diplomats to try and end this war, and Biden wouldn't meet with him and wouldn't hear anything of it.
In 2019, America walked away from a peace treaty, the Minsk Agreement, that had been negotiated between Russia and Ukraine by European nations. And then in April of 2022, we wanted the war. In April of 2022, President Biden sent Boris Johnson to Ukraine to force President Zelensky to tear up a peace agreement that he and the Russians had already signed, and the Russians were withdrawing troops from Kiev and Donbass and Lugansk. And that peace agreement would have brought peace to the region and would have allowed Donbass and Lugansk to remain part of Ukraine. President Biden stated that month that his objective in the war was regime change in Russia. His Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin simultaneously explained that America's purpose in the war was to exhaust the Russian army, to degrade its capacity to fight anywhere else in the world. These objectives, of course, have nothing to do with what they were telling Americans about protecting Ukraine's sovereignty. Ukraine is a victim in this war, and it's a victim of the West. Since then, of Russia and both Russia and the West. Since then, we have, since tearing up that agreement, forcing Zelensky to tear up the agreement, we've squandered the flower of Ukrainian youth, as many as 600,000 Ukrainian kids, and over 100,000 Russian kids, all of whom we should be mourning, have died, and the Ukraine's infrastructure is destroyed. The war has been a disaster for our country as well. We squandered nearly $200 billion already, and these are badly needed dollars in our communities, suffering communities all over our country. The Nord Stream pipeline sabotage and the sanctions have destroyed Europe's industrial base, which formed the bulwark of U.S. national security. A strong Germany with a strong industry is a much stronger deterrent to Russia, and a Germany that is deindustrialized and turned into just an extension of U.S. military base. We've pushed Russia into a disastrous alliance with China and Iran. We're closer to the brink of nuclear exchange than at any time since 1962. And the neocons in the White House don't seem to care at all. Our moral authority and our economy are in shambles. And the war gave rise to the emergence of BRICS, which now threatens to replace the dollar as the global reserve currency. This is a first-class calamity for our country. Judging by her bellicose, belligerent speech last night in Chicago, we can assume that President Harris will be an enthusiastic advocate for this and other neocon military adventures. And President Trump says that he will reopen negotiations with President Putin and end the war overnight as soon as he becomes president. This alone would justify my support for his campaign. Last summer, it looked like no candidate was willing to negotiate a quick end to the Ukraine war, to tackle chronic disease epidemic, to protect free speech, our constitutional freedoms, to clean corporate influence out of our government, or to defy the neocons and their agenda of endless military adventurism. But now one of the two candidates has adopted these issues as his own, to the point where he has asked to enlist me in his administration. I'm speaking, of course, of Donald Trump.
What?
Less than 2 hours after President Trump narrowly escaped assassination, Callie Means called me on my cell phone. I was then in Las Vegas. Callie is arguably the leading advocate for food safety, for soil regeneration, and for ending the chronic disease epidemic that is destroying America's health and ruining our economy. Callie has exposed the insidious corruption at the FDA, the NIH, the HHS, and the USDA that has caused the epidemic. Callie had been working on and off for my campaign, advising me on those subjects since the beginning. And those subjects have been my primary focus for the last 20 years. I was delighted when Callie told me that day that he had also been advising President Trump. He told me President Trump was anxious to talk to me about chronic disease and other subjects, and to explore avenues of cooperation. He asked if I would take a call from the president. President Trump telephoned me a few minutes later, and I met with him the following day. A few weeks later, I met again with President Trump and his family members and closest advisors in Florida. In a series of long, intense discussions, I was surprised to discover that we are aligned on many key issues. In those meetings, he suggested that we join forces as a unity party. We talked about Abraham Lincoln's team of rivals. That arrangement would allow us to disagree publicly and privately, and fiercely if need be, on issues over which we differ, while working together on the existential issues upon which we are in concordance. I was a ferocious critic of many of the policies during his first administration, and there are still issues and approaches upon which we continue to have very serious differences. But we are aligned with each other on other key issues, like ending the forever wars, ending the childhood disease epidemics, securing the border, protecting freedom of speech, unraveling the corporate capture of our regulatory agencies, getting the U.S. intelligence agencies out of the business of propagandizing and censoring and surveilling Americans and interfering with our elections. Following my first discussion with President Trump, I tried unsuccessfully to open similar discussions with Vice President Harris. Vice President Harris declined to meet or even to speak with me. Suspending my candidacy is a heart-rending decision for me, but I'm convinced that it's the best hope.
All right, this is very interesting, and I think there's going to be a lot for people to chew over here.
All right. I can't get you the rest of the feed because C-SPAN nuked it I don't have it. It's not on the C-SPAN 3 website. I just checked. So the only place that you could get this, apparently, is if you actually have a camera there, and I don't have a camera there. So we'll try to get you the rest of the feed. But let me just go over what you just heard while we search to see if we can get reconnected here on this most incredibly, folks, the most incredible day possibly in American political history. So let's just go over what we just heard RFK Jr. say. By the way, let me just say to you, Mike Church here on the Crusade Radio Network. We're going to continue live here on X and on YouTube as I continue to search for this feed. And if I can find it, well, I think I have it, Justin. It may be...
website, RFK Jr.'s website.
It's on his site. It looks like it's on C-SPAN too. Just
Rumble too.
yeah, I think it's. I think I can get it here on. Yeah, it's on C-SPAN. I just got to wait for it to load. RFK Jr. just said, and I want to make sure that I get the quote correct because it is. It's that important that it is said correctly here. He just said the Democrat Party, quote, it became the party of war, censorship, corruption, big pharma, big tech, and big money. And then that's why he decided that he had to leave the Democrat Party. It looks like I have the feedback here now on C-SPAN. Let's see.
3.8 chronic diseases. So these were people who had immune system collapse, who had mitochondrial dysfunction, and no other country has anything like this. 2/3 of American adults and children suffer from chronic health issues. 50 years ago, that number was less than 1%. So we've gone from 1% to 66%. In America, 74% of Americans are now overweight or obese, and 50% of our children. 120 years ago, when somebody was obese, they were sent to the circus. There were case reports done about them. Obesity was almost unknown. In Japan, the childhood obesity rate is 3%, compared to 50% here. Half of Americans have prediabetes or type 2 diabetes. When my uncle was president and I was a boy, juvenile diabetes was effectively non-existent. A typical pediatrician would see one case of diabetes during his entire career, a 40 or 50-year career. Today, 1 out of every 3 kids who walks through his office door is diabetic or pre-diabetic, and the mitochondrial disorder that caused diabetes also causing Alzheimer's, which is now classified as diabetes, and it's costing this country more than our military budget every year. There's been an explosion of neurological illnesses that I never saw as a kid: ADD, ADHD, speech delay, language delay, Tourette's syndrome, narcolepsy, ASD, Asperger's, autism. In the year 2000, the autism rate was 1 in 1,500. Now autism rates in kids are 1 in 36, according to CDC nationally. Nobody's talking about this. 1 in every 22 kids in California has autism. And this is a crisis that 77% of our kids are too disabled to serve in the United States military. What is happening to our country? And why isn't this in the headlines every single day? There's nobody else in the world that is experiencing this. This is only happening in America. About 18%, and by the way, there has been no change in diagnosis, which the industry sometimes like to say. There has been no change in screening. This is a change in incidence. In my generation, 70-year-old men, the autism rates are about 1 in 10,000. In my kids' generation, 1 in 34. I'll repeat, in California, 1 in 22. Why are we letting this happen? Why are we allowing this to happen to our children? These are the most precious assets that we have in this country. How can we let this happen to them? About 18% of American teens now have fatty liver disease. That's like 1 out of every 5. That disease, when I was a kid, only affected late-stage alcoholics who were elderly. Cancer rates are skyrocketing in the young and the old. Young adult cancers are up 79%. 1 in 4 American women is on antidepressant medication. 40% of teens have a mental health diagnosis. And 15% of high schoolers are on Adderall, and 500,000 children on SSRIs. So what's causing this suffering? I'll name 2 culprits. The first and the worst is ultra-processed food. About 70% of American children's diet is ultra-processed. That means industrial manufactured in a factory. These foods consist primarily of processed sugar, ultra-processed grains, and seed oils. Laboratory scientists who many of them formerly worked for the cigarette industry, which purchased all the big food companies in the 1970s and 80s, deployed thousands of scientists to figure out new chemicals to make the food more addictive. And these ingredients didn't exist 100 years ago. Humans aren't biologically adapted to eat them. Hundreds of these chemicals are now banned in Europe, but ubiquitous in American processed foods. The second culprit is toxic chemicals in our food, our medicine, and our environment. Pesticides, food additives, pharmaceutical drugs, and toxic waste permeate every cell of our bodies. The assault on our children's cells and hormones is unrelenting. To name just one problem, many of these chemicals increase estrogen. Because young children are ingesting so many of these hormone disruptors, America's puberty rate is now occurring at age 10 to 13, which is 6 years earlier than girls were reaching puberty in 1900. Our country has the earliest puberty rates of any continent on the earth. And no, this isn't because of better nutrition. This is not normal. Breast cancer is also estrogen-driven, and it now strikes 1 in 8 women. We are mass poisoning all of our children and our adults. Considering the grievous human cost of this tragic epidemic of chronic disease, it seems almost crass to mention the damage it does to our economy. But I'll say, it is crippling the nation's finances. When my uncle was president, our country spent $0 on chronic disease. Today, government health care spending is almost all for chronic disease. And it's double the military budget. And it is the fastest growing budget item in the federal budget. And chronic disease costs more to the economy as a whole, costs at least $4 trillion, 5 times our military budget. And that's a 20% drag on everything we do and everything we aspire to. Poor and minority communities suffer disproportionately. People who worry about DEI or about bigotry of any kind, this dwarfs anything. We are poisoning the poor. We are systematically poisoning minorities across this country. Industry lobbyists have made sure that most of the food stamp lunch program, about 70% of food stamps and about 70 or 77% of school lunches are processed foods. There's no vegetables. There's nothing that you would want to eat. We are just poisoning the poor citizens, and that's why they have the highest chronic disease burden of anybody, any demographic in our country, and the highest in the world. The same food industry lobbied to make sure that nearly all agricultural subsidies go to commodity crops that are the feedstock of processed food industry. These policies are destroying small farms, and they're destroying our soils. We give about, I think, 8 times as much in subsidies to tobacco than we do to fruits and vegetables. It makes no sense. If we want a healthy country, the good news is that we can change all this. And we can change it very, very quickly. America can get healthy again. To do that, we need to do three things. First, we need to root out the corruption in our health agencies. Second, we need to change incentives in our healthcare system. And third, we need to inspire Americans to get healthy again. 80% of NIH grants go to people who have conflicts of interest. These are the people, virtually everybody who sits, Joe Biden just appointed a new panel to NIH to decide the food recommendations. And they're all people who are from
I'm just going to eavesdrop on Trump, who just hit the stage in
RFK
Las
Jr.,
Vegas.
So let's listen in.
Everybody for being here. We just had a very nice endorsement from RFK Jr., Bobby. And I'll be talking about that. We're heading out right after this. We're going to be going to Arizona. We'll be talking about that and a lot of other things too. But I just want to thank everybody. And I want to thank Bobby. That was very nice. That was really very nice. That's big. He's a great guy, respected by everybody. So thank you all for this incredible.
Okay, we'll go back to RFK Jr.
And pharma executives and consultants and lobbyists cycle in and out of these agencies.
This is the Crusade Radio Network, live talk and campaign radio the way it should be.
He's with honest scientists and doctors who are free from industry funding. We're going to make sure the decisions of consumers, doctors, and patients are informed by unbiased science. A sick child is the best thing for the pharmaceutical industry. When American children or adults get sick with a chronic condition, they're put on medication for their entire life. Imagine what will happen when Medicare starts paying for Ozempic, which costs $1,500 a month, and it's being recommended for children as young as 6, all for a condition, obesity, that is completely preventable and barely even existed 100 years ago. And 74% of Americans are obese. The cost, if all of them took their Ozempic prescription, is $3 trillion a year. This is a drug that is made by Novo Nordisk, the biggest company in Europe. It's a Danish company, and the Danish government does not recommend it. It recommends change in diet to treat obesity and exercise. And in our country, the recommendation now is for Ozempic to children at age 6. Novo Nordisk, the biggest company in Europe, and virtually its entire value is based upon its projections of what it's going to sell, of the Ozempic it's going to sell to America. And we have the food lobbyists have a bill in front of Congress today that is backed by the White House, backed by Vice President Harris and President Biden, to allow this to happen. This $3 trillion cost that is going to bankrupt our country. For a fraction of that amount, we could buy organic food for every American family, 3 meals a day, and eliminate diabetes altogether. We're going to bring healthy food back to school lunches. We're going to stop subsidizing the worst foods with our agricultural subsidies. We're going to get toxic chemicals out of our food. We're going to reform the entire food system. And for that, we need new leadership in Washington. Because unfortunately, both the Democrats and the Republican parties are in cahoots with the big food producers, Big Pharma and Big Ag, which are among the DNC's major donors. Vice President Harris has expressed no interest in addressing this issue. 4 more years of Democratic rule will complete the consolidation of corporate and neocon power, and our children will be the ones who suffer most. I got involved with chronic disease 20 years ago, not because I chose to or wanted to. It was essentially thrust upon me. It was an issue that should have been central to the environmental movement. I was a central leader at that time. But it was widely ignored by all the institutions, including the NGOs, who should have been protecting our kids against toxins. It was an orphaned issue, and I had a weakness for orphans. I watched generations of children get sicker and sicker. I had 11 siblings, and I had 7 kids myself. I was conscious of what was happening in their classrooms and to their friends, and I watched these sick kids, these damaged kids. In that generation, almost all of them are damaged. And nobody in power seemed to care or to even notice. For 19 years, I prayed every morning that God would put me in a position to end this calamity. The chronic disease crisis was one of the primary reasons for my running for president, along with ending censorship in the Ukraine war. It's the reason I've made the heart-wrenching decision to suspend my campaign and to support President Trump. This decision is agonizing for me because of the difficulties it causes my wife and my children and my friends. But I have the certainty that this is what I've meant to do. And that certainty gives me internal peace, even in storms. If I'm given the chance to fix the chronic disease crisis and reform our food production, I promise that within 2 years, we will watch chronic disease burden lift dramatically. We will make Americans healthy again. Within 4 years, America will be a healthy country. We will be stronger, more resilient, more optimistic, and happier. I won't fail in doing this. Ultimately, the future, however it happens, is in God's hands and in the hands of the American voters and those of President Trump. If President Trump is elected and honors his word, the vast burden of chronic disease that now demoralizes and bankrupts the country will disappear. This is a spiritual journey for me. I reached my decision through deep prayer, through hard-nosed logic, and I asked myself, what choices must I make to maximize my chances to save America's children and restore national health? I felt that if I refused this opportunity, I would not be able to look myself in the mirror, knowing that I could have saved lives of countless children and reversed this country's chronic disease epidemic. I'm 70 years old. I may have a decade to be effective. I can't imagine that President Harris would allow me or anyone to solve these dire problems. After 8 years of President Harris, any opportunity for me to fix the problem will be out of my reach forever. President Trump has told me that he wants this to be his legacy. I'm choosing to believe that this time he will follow through. His son, his biggest donors, his closest friends, and all support this objective. My joining the Trump campaign will be a difficult sacrifice for my wife and children, but worthwhile if there's even a small chance of saving these kids. Ultimately, the only thing that will save our country and our children is if we choose to love our kids more than we hate each other. That's why I launched my campaign to unify America. My dad and uncle made such an enduring mark on the character of our nation, not so much because of any particular policies that they promoted, but because they were able to inspire profound love for our country and to fortify our sense of ourselves as a national community held together by ideals. They were able to put their love into the intentions and hearts of ordinary Americans and to unify a national populist movement of Americans, blacks and whites, Hispanics, urban and rural Americans. They inspired affection and love and high hopes and a culture of kindness that continue to radiate among Americans from their memory. That's the spirit on which I ran my campaign and that I intend to bring into the campaign of President Trump. Instead of vitriol and polarization, I will appeal to the values that unite us, the goals that we could achieve if only we weren't at each other's throats. The most unifying theme for all Americans is that we all love our children. If we all unite around that issue now, we can finally give them the protection, the health, and the future that they deserve. Thank you all very much.
Okay, folks, Mike Church here with you on the Crusade Radio Network. If you're listening to this on radio, then you didn't get the full effect. If you're watching it, you just saw Robert Francis Kennedy cry. That last 5 minutes, he was weeping. He had me weeping here. And as I'm screaming at the top of my lungs to my producer Justin, I cannot believe this is happening. I am simply stunned. But I'm stunned with joy. I got a bottle of bourbon in the other room. I just bought the other day. I want to go guzzle it. I want to go running down the street screaming, "Liberty is alive! Liberty is alive!" The most incredible. Here, a couple of takeaways. Number one, he's completely eviscerated the Democrat Party. I want to go on record here and just remind people who are watching on X and on Roku and on YouTube and on our Rumble, wherever else you may be watching this, that, somebody laughed at me when you don't really believe that. I'm like, no, I do. I believe that the Federalist Party ended in 1835, 1836, because Andrew Jackson was pretty much a Federalist, and people hated him so much that it basically brought, and I'm not saying that Jackson was wrong about everything. Please don't misunderstand, but people didn't like him. Then the Federalist Party basically came to an end. There was no other party, and Martin Van Buren formed what he called the Party of Democracy, or the Democrat Party, in 1836, and he was shortly thereafter elected president as a Democrat. The Republican Party wouldn't form until 1858, folks. So there were 12 years in there where there's only one major party. There were so many different parties. It was just silly, stupid, the know-nothings who hated the Catholics. There's so many different parties until the Republican Party finally forms. My point in bringing that up is, when I told, I think it was Mike Parrott, and maybe it might even been Magdalene Rose yesterday during our political affairs segment on the Mike Church Show here on the Crusade Radio Network, when I told him, when I said, I think that the bell is nigh, I think it's the end, I think that this really is the end of the Democrat Party. Where is their bench? The nomination of Harris is the worst thing that they could have done. It's just throwing your hands up in the surrender saying, look, we're just throwing our chips in. We're just all in on corruption now. It's the only way we can win anything, and we know it. We're just going to admit it. We're just going to have her go out there and lie. We're going to have all of her stooges in the media lie. We're going to have the Federal Election Commission, the Federal Trade Commission. We're going to have the FCC. We're going to have everyone crack down on anyone that dares to buck the lie in the system. I am simply stunned. And for Robert Francis Kennedy to go on that stage and to say that, and he spilled the beans. He spilled the beans. The party of censorship, the party of war, the party of all the things that he said, are just, quote, the Democrat Party, it became the party of war, censorship, corruption, big pharma, big tech, and big money. Close quote. And he said that I am joining the Trump campaign. President Trump has promised me a cabinet position. Folks, okay, I don't know where, I'm so excited, I don't know what to say. Let me go back quickly to August of so he announced it in April, to June of last year. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. had a summit of regenerative farmers. We broadcast it here on the Crusade Radio Network. I attended it. I wasn't invited to participate, but I kind of was in on the call, and I broadcast it. He had Will Harris, who is a great cattle rancher in Georgia. He had all the right regenerative farming guys talking about look, we have to stop this. The cows got to go back out and crap on the land, stop with the fertilizers, stop with the Roundup. We have to get back to regenerative, healthy farming practices. Our soil is being destroyed. And Robert Kennedy listened. And he added it to his campaign. He made it part of his campaign. Today, he said, we are going to make, I wrote it down, we will make America healthy again. He just made a pledge if you're just joining us. He said within 2 years, if President Trump follows through on his word, and I believe that he will this time, if President Trump follows through and appoints me, and I am confirmed, I promise you in 2 years we will get back to safe and healthy food. We will end this chronic disease epidemic that is being forced upon us by Big Pharma, Big Ag, and all the other bigs. Ladies and gentlemen, you're talking about like a $10 trillion swing here. Look, pray. Christian, evangelical, Protestant, Catholic, Jew, Hindu, pray. You don't think they're not going to go after that man? You think that's the last time they're going to try and take Trump out now? In the chat room, we need to do our part and pray, also, and support good Catholic channels. Thank you, TC. I appreciate that. Yes, support us. But let's let this soak in for a minute here. President Trump has promised to Kennedy that he is going to adopt certain of his ideals. You heard Robert Francis Kennedy Jr. You heard him say at the end, I thought the most moving, emotional part was the end. But in third place comes the condemnation of the Democrat Party. And then in third place comes the discussion that Dr. Callie Means, on the Sunday after they tried to kill Trump, called RFK Jr. up. For those of you that may have missed it, I'm just giving you a quick recap. Called RFK Jr. up and said, look, I know you don't know this because you guys aren't sharing intel. I am advising the Trump campaign. Don Jr., how you like that? Don Jr. got me in, and I'm talking with President Trump, and Robert, he's listening to me. Can I put you in touch with him? Just talk to him. He wants to talk to you. Will you talk to him? And RFK Jr. said, absolutely, make the call. They made the call. And I told you that they had a meeting in Milwaukee. Remember the big rumor, Justin, where they said that RFK Jr. is just going to happen to be in Milwaukee and Trump the first day of the Republican convention? And they went, no, it was just a handshake, a photo op, and all that. We now know the context of that meeting. RFK Jr. asking President Trump, are you serious? Now, I want to just cover one more, and then we're going to go to Trump, because he's giving a talk in Las Vegas. I want to go to one more part about this and talk about it. He said that when he talked to the president about it, he asked him to give him some time, and then he called his contacts at the DNC and said, I want to talk to Harris. She wouldn't even take his call. They basically arrogantly told him, go screw yourself. We're not interested in talking to you, you has-been. You're not a Democrat anywhere. Get the hell out of here. She doesn't want to talk to you. The answer is no. Then we learn that Nicole Shanahan, RFK Jr.'s Veep candidate, also working back channels, tried to get a meeting with Kamala Harris and the DNC. They refused to meet. They refused to listen. They wouldn't even talk to him. At that point, that's when RFK Jr. made the decision, I have to do this. Let me go over something else. When RFK Jr. just now said, look, I'm getting old. This may be the last chance I have. How would I look myself in the mirror if I didn't believe President Trump and didn't put my heart and my soul into this? And I prayed to God every day that I could be an instrument of his work and bring an end to this horror. Folks, if you're not moved out of your chairs and if you're not just weeping tears of joy that you were a part of, if you are watching this or listening to this today, you witnessed a moment in American history they're going to write about in history books 200 years from now. We don't know how it's going to turn out, but we do know that the battle for the first time has been joined. I am absolutely, I'm stunned with joy. All right, we're going to go to Las Vegas now. I have lots more to say about this, but I want to hear what President Trump is saying.
A little light up here, you know. Can you give me a little light so you can read this little speech? But you know what it does? It makes you speak a little bit less, so that's okay too. But I do want to thank you all, and I want to thank Javier. This is a fantastic restaurant, and the reputation is as good as it gets, And I'm going to come here next time to eat. Is that okay? I
Oh, but
will be
he
doing
hates
that
the little
too.
guy, right?
We have with us Lieutenant
President
Governor
Trump, ladies and gentlemen.
Stavros.
The Crusade Radio Network, live talking campaign radio the way it should be. You people that have supported us,
See you soon,
it was
okay?
for this day. Thank
It's
you.
really an honor. Great guy, too. And Nevada GOP Chairman Michael McDonald. Michael. And he's very happy about the no tax on tips because he was the first one that presented after the young, beautiful waitress that suggested. I said, "What do you think of it, Michael?" He said, "I think it's a great idea." But we've come here today to talk about the biggest promise I think that the restaurant workers have had in a long time, and that's no tax on tips. And in our case, we mean it. Somebody that I know just copied it, but you know that's not going to happen. If you're a restaurant worker, a bartender, a hospitality worker, a caddy, a barber, a mover, driver of any kind, or anyone else, you rely on a lot of tip income, hopefully a lot. But when I win in November, hopefully we're going to win. We're going to turn our country around. We're going to make America great again. We're going to let you keep 100% of your tip income and not be harassed. And just so you understand, the other side, Kamala, have you ever heard of her? Kamala? Nobody ever heard of her before. She lost in the first round. She was the first one out. It's a weird thing. He got 14 million votes, and he's sitting on a beach angry as hell. And she got no votes, and she's running. So you explained that to me. But the United States is home to an estimated 5.5 million workers whose livelihoods depend on tip income. And they work with their hands and their talent, their sweat and their skill. And they are really skilled people, and they're great people. They're people that have been with me always, and I'm with them. I'm doing them a big favor. Nobody ever heard of this concept before, and it's something that makes a lot of sense. As soon as I heard it, I said, let's do it. And then they copied us a couple of months later, but I don't think anybody's buying it. It's like last night, the speech. She made 26 different things that were lies. She lied, but that's okay because a lot of people lie. They'll do anything to get elected, but she lied about, she's increasing taxes, I'm decreasing taxes, and she put it the other way around. Perhaps she misspoke, perhaps. Nearly 2/3 of the workers are women, and an estimated 700,000 single mothers nationwide rely on tip income to support their children. These are some of the best and hardest working people in America, and when I'm president, you are the ones I will be fighting for, and I'll be fighting for you very hard every single day. Kamala Harris is now pretending to endorse my policy. She's got a lot of other policies. She's a copycat. She's a flip-flopper. You know what a flip? She's the greatest flip-flopper in history. She went from communism to capitalism in about 2 weeks. But in fact, Kamala cast the tie-breaking vote to hire 87,000 new IRS agents to go after your tip income. They're going after it in a lot of ways, so I don't know what they're doing now. This has happened with a lot of industries. When we come out with something, they immediately fold. But you know that after the election, if something horrible happened, which is always a possibility, especially the way they cheat. But if something horrible happened, you know that you'd go right back and you'd never see anything about no tax on tips. You know that. Under Kamala and Crooked Joe Biden, where is he? Where's Joe? What happened to Joe? He's on a beach someplace. He's angry. The IRS has imposed costly and burdensome new reporting requirements on restaurant and other employers, and these employers are great people. They're great people. They really work hard, like Javier. They work very hard, and they do an incredible job. And this is going to make their life a little bit easier because, frankly, for them, it's a lot better, too, when they have happy employees that are making a little more money and just do a better job. People like Javier are very happy. He was happy to hear about this. Every restaurant owner is happy to hear about this. But they're trying to squeeze every penny out of this tip income the government is. And now they're not going to be able to do that. We're going to get this done very fast, too, by the way. Kamala she also sponsored legislation to blow up the tip system entirely, which would inflict financial calamity on food servers and bartenders in Las Vegas and all across America. They have bills pending and things pending and resolutions pending and special orders pending where they're going after your tips. I don't know what they're going to do with that. Are they supposed to be dropping? I assume they're going to be dropping all that stuff, at least until after the election. They'll bring it back after the election. Kamala supports a bill to eliminate the federal tip credit, which would force restaurants to impose large service charges on diners, meaning customers will not leave tips at all, and you'll be stuck with a minimum wage or whatever you might be making. This is something that they're forcing. I will never let that happen. Under the Trump administration, you'll keep your tips, and restaurant workers will keep all of your hard-earned money. I met this incredible young woman. She was standing behind the counter. I walked into a restaurant, whatever it may be. What was that restaurant? That Chick-fil-A, right? Very religious owner and a great guy, and it's good stuff. And she saw me and she said, "President Trump," and she gave me the biggest hug. She said, "You saved my college," and she loved that college, right? And you love me, and I love you too. I do actually. But it was like instant chemistry, right?
Yes, immediate. I told them earlier, we're best friends.
Yeah. They didn't know I was coming. We do that surprise. I guess we do that for certain reasons, like security and things. We don't want to broadcast it too much. But I walked in and she grabbed me and I grabbed her. But I saved her college. That's the historically black colleges and universities. And she loved her college. She thought it was. I said, "Do you really like it? Was it good?" Go ahead, give it a little public.
I love the illustrious Clark Atlanta University.
Do you see? And she really did. It was great to see that, as opposed to,
folks, we're going to break away from this for just a moment here. I actually have it playing on C-SPAN, and I can pause it and come back to because I want to bring Magdalene Rose in, our campaign affairs correspondent and digital media strategist. We heard the most amazing thing today. Magdalene, a political event that is probably as big as the signing of the Declaration of Independence here. It's going to reverberate throughout the Western world here. That Robert F. Kennedy Jr., not only did he endorse President Trump, he threw the entirety of the Democrat Party under the bus, told the truth about what it is that they really are doing and did to him and would do to anyone else that tries to get in their way. I know you had to go put the baby down, so you may not have had a lot of time to browse around, but what's the early reaction amongst young conservatives and libertarians and liberals?
But it was an amazing speech, and I rarely say that, but I also think it was an amazing speech. The way he laid out how he's been sort of under this destruction by Democrats was awe-inspiring. He talked about how they've systematically kept him off of ballots, the legal process against him. And what I found so interesting was that he had found sort of a kindred spirit in Donald Trump, in that Trump was under in a different way, but still under the same kind of onslaught by Democrats. And the way he explained how Kamala Harris has not done any interviews, I found that to be one of the most important statements or sort of mini speeches of this entire political season, because it's ridiculous that she hasn't. And I think even those of us covering politics, we've become numb to how ridiculous it is that she doesn't speak to anybody. We sort of laugh it off, and in reality, it's really terrifying that the woman who could become president never talks to the media, other than to say what fun records she bought at a record store. It's ridiculous. His speech, I think, could have the most impact of any speech, including Trump's right now, within this election cycle, because he was sort of the swing vote independent guy. And if we have him on board, and I think by extension Nicole Shanahan's money-raising abilities, we have a good chance of winning. His attack on Kamala Harris, I think, has been the best attack on her this election season.
I have someone that is at the event in Glendale, Arizona. Trad Pat is there, and he's sending me messages going like, "Mike, you cannot believe how insane the environment is here right now." He says, quote, "The vibe here is insane, as I would imagine that it would be." Now, you still have to go through the process of an electoral process here. But ladies and gentlemen, contrast what you heard last night no policy. I'm a godmama. I am a daughter. Yeah, my mom came here, and my dad was a communist Marxist, and they made me and my sister, and I worked at McDonald's, and I did this and that and the other. And then to go after, then she turned into Biden. Magdalene, she turned into Biden. The brow got furrowed. She began to scowl. The knives came out, and she began screaming at the audience about how rotten Trump was. And she just unloaded a litany of lies. It was so bad, folks, that those of you that don't listen to our coverage here on the Crusade Radio Network or never have listened to it, it was so bad I cut it off. I'm not going to broadcast this because there's not a thing that she said after the Girl Scout introduction and the remaking of the All American Girl. There wasn't a thing that she said that was true, so I cut it off. You didn't get any policy out of that. You got no proposal for anything. And okay, though that was at let's just round it off. That was at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time last night. Today, right now, it was about 1:45 Central, so that's 2:45 Eastern Standard Time. So that is 12, 13, 14. In the span of 14 and a half hours then, 14 and a half hours later, and then the span of the last 1 hour and 15 minutes, Magdalene, we have gotten a layout of the agenda of the Trump administration coming in. Robert Francis Kennedy said President Trump wants the health of our children and nation, the literal health. He's going to add this to the stump speech, and I can't wait to hear it. I'm so excited. I wish I was there. He's going to say, and we will make America healthy again. He's going to add that to the speech. Robert Francis Kennedy Jr. laid out policy initiatives, 3 things that have to be done, but policy initiatives, and he took almost a half an hour to do it. He did more on policy today, and President Trump just did it in laying out some of this tax on tips. They did more in the span of 45 minutes than happened at the the now finished Democrat Party, at the Democrat National Circus in 4 days.
That's true. And what's interesting is that Donald Trump has always been somebody who could have had those health-conscious moms on his side, but he's never had the messenger. He's never had the person who can go into those Facebook groups and those events and say, "Hey, I have a policy platform that can help you. I'm on your side." I think that Trump may, for the first time, be really willing to have a coalition. He's been so hyper-focused on his base that he's sort of excluded people, not on purpose, but it's happened. RFK Jr. joining this campaign in any capacity is a game changer. And what was so frustrating about Kamala Harris's convention speech is that she knows that she's not been democratically nominated for this. She knows that this is a coronation. It's ridiculous. If she had gone to a primary, an open primary, and been chosen, fine. I would think of it as much more a legitimate process. And she never makes it clear that she knows this was given to her. She never is sort of grateful or anything. This is a coronation. And Democrats have a problem because the young socialists, who we all dislike for good reason, but those people are tired of the Democrat coronation. They did it with Clinton. They did it with Biden. Now they've done it with Kamala Harris. The young Democrats of that party have not been able to choose a nominee since 2008. And at some point, it's got to be enough for them.
You know, I don't like young socialists. I don't like socialists either. I don't like communists of any stripe. But I'll tell you this. The young people out there, they love their microbrewed and the hoppy beer that I can't drink because I can't stand it, and the sour ales and all that stuff. But they run a lot of those microbrews. The young people you're talking about, they have the vape bar there. They have the microbrew there. They have the sour ale. They have the apple stuff. They have all that stuff. But the point is, I talked to one in Tampa, and I said, "Dude, you're not a socialist." He goes, "Well, I think that I'm like, no, you're not. You're a producer. You're an owner. You make things. You make beer. You can't be a socialist." I think that crowd is completely wide open when you bring a RFK Jr. into the campaign. Magdalene, hang on a second. I want to go to Trad Pat, who is live in Glendale, Arizona at the Trump event, which is going to go off in about 3 hours, and we're going to broadcast it live here on the Crusade Radio Network. We're not just going to broadcast it, we're going to celebrate it because I can't wait to see and to hear. Trad Pat, how you doing, brother, and what's it like there?
I had to walk away, but it is people are excited. I mean, the news came out and everybody was like listening and waiting. And it was kind of known before he started speaking when he dropped out in Pennsylvania. And literally the campaign message was that he was dropping out and endorsing Trump. But people out here are just like waiting, because even CNN has dropped the news that Kennedy is going to be at the rally tonight. So a lot of people are really excited for these announcements that are going to come out. I mean, there's even speculation that Kennedy is going to end up replacing Vance as the VP, which I don't think is going to be the case. But there is definitely a lot of excitement and incredible amount of people. I'll be honest with you, I think I told you this morning when I drove past about 4 o'clock this morning, there were already people camped out. You'd think it was a rock concert. You know, you didn't get that kind of excitement, that kind of jive, if you would, at the Democrat national, whatever you want to call that, funeral that they had for the Democrat Party today. But as you can hear, I'm losing my voice. There's a lot of talking going on, a lot of people getting excited. And there's a lot of people here. I'll have to take some pictures and send them over to you, but there's just a ton of people here. Unfortunately, it's a smaller arena. I think that they actually need the football field next door for this.
So this is where they play the basketball games?
This is where they used to play hockey. Of course, the state of Arizona lost their hockey team I think it's to Utah. But this is where they used to play hockey. It's not a very big arena. I think it's maybe I want to say 50,000 could fit in this particular arena from what I'm looking at online. But there's definitely more than that here. So there's definitely a lot of people who are not going to get in tonight.
Trad Pat, I'm going to let you get back to your friends. I hope you can call us again later when it gets closer and when Trump is there. I don't know if you can get a call out or not, but you and I spoke this morning. You and I spoke personally yesterday. In the span of 24 hours, the world has changed, brother. It has seriously changed. I'm going to play a clip in just a moment here that no one is going to believe. The word seed oils is going to be heard. You and Mike Parrott just had a conversation about seed oils.
Yes.
And they did a whole segment here on the Crusade Radio Network on Parrott Talk yesterday. Mike did a whole segment today about how he can't go to any restaurants anymore because he doesn't trust them because he thinks they're all using seed oils. Robert F. Kennedy, Francis Kennedy Jr. did 2.5 minutes on seed oils and how awful and horrible. Most people have never heard this before, and they're going to walk away and they're going to go like, what's a seed oil? I want that question to be asked out there. I can't wait for someone to ask me, Mike, do you know what a seed oil is? Like, hell yeah, I know what a seed oil is, and I don't use them.
J.D. Vance actually brought that up when he first came out as the VP pick. He actually was the first one to bring that up. So he's absolutely 100% online with RFK Jr. On the use of seed oils.
And by the way, now you and I are bullish on Trump, and you're a big Trump fan, and you have been, and I'm a big Trump fan, and for the most part I have been. There was a couple of years in there I didn't like him. But I just want to say, I said this on Wednesday's show. I said on Monday's show when the rumors first started circulating about RFK Jr., I'm like, you guys don't understand. You're talking about the guy who wrote the book, The Art of the Deal. You're talking about the guy that had the Bonwit Teller building razed to the ground so he could put Trump Tower in his place, and no one in Manhattan wanted it to happen. Now, it was going to happen anyway because Bonwit Teller would go bankrupt in 1990. Trump Tower goes up in 1985. But you're talking about the guy that wrote The Art of the Deal. You don't understand. It's not that Trump does everything. It's that he sets in motion, and for the most part, not always, puts the right people in the right places. But once the deal is on the table, he's not going to walk away until he gets the deal. And I knew that if he was talking to Kennedy, Kennedy's a good guy. You and I agree with. And look, I don't know, did you get a chance? Did you hear him, Pat? Did you hear Kennedy?
Only bits and pieces because we were entering into the arena at that point, but I did get to hear bits and pieces of it. There were people kind of huddled around cell phones and stuff like that. But the event is actually starting, so I'm going to go back in, and then I will call you back as soon as as soon as I can get a break here from the excitement.
I just want to leave you one thing. Robert Francis Kennedy's Catholic upbringing did him a solid in the last couple of months, because he said, every morning I got up and I prayed, and I go like, oh, please tell me he prayed to the Blessed Mother. Please tell me he prayed to Mary, and that he is ultimately going to thank Mary for this. Not that I have a problem with him thanking Jesus. Don't get me wrong. He could thank both. But I know that he's a Marian. I know he carries a rosary around with him. I know that he does. I've seen him take it out before. And I hope that Our Lady had a role in this. I know that his wife, Cheryl Hines, must have said yes. And to me, that's Mary. That's Our Lady going like, Cheryl, I know you want the big thing. Take the win. This is a great thing for a lot of children. Take the win. Great day, Trad Pat. Talk to you soon, brother. Thanks for calling in.
Later.
So, folks, let's go back to Magdalene Rosa here. Mike Churchill on the Crusade Radio Network. The historic occasion today cannot be underestimated, and cannot be. You can't say enough. He talked for 20 minutes about the military-industrial complex. He talked about the importance of Ukraine. He said he had policy conversations, Magdalene, with President Trump, and he said, and President Trump knows that Ukraine must end. And he said, and I know that we will end this war, that the Ukrainian-Russian conflict, which has been kept alive by Biden and by Harris, is going to end. A war is going to come to a war that is taking the lives of tens of thousands of Ukrainian boys and Russian boys is going to come to an end, and it's been going on because of Biden, Harris, and the Ansham deep state regime. And it's going to come to an end when President Trump is reelected on November the 5th. I just say, look, I'm so much older than you. I'm your mentor. I'm the one that's supposed to be counseling you to calm down. You need to tell me to calm down.
Yes, and I think it's interesting because Robert Kennedy Jr. has just become the most important Kennedy in the country. And that was previously held by the female Kennedy who runs the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Society organization. And he has catapulted over all of them to now be a major player in politics. When was the last time a Kennedy was a major player in politics? In the past 2 election cycles. He has made the Kennedy name more relevant than it has been in decades. And that's why, I don't know if you saw it, but the Kennedy family put out a statement disavowing this and saying it was a bad choice and everything, his sister leading the charge. But at the end of the day, if Donald Trump wins and this man is in charge of anything within Washington, the Kennedy family will be more powerful than it has in a very long time, and it'll be led by the one that they hate the most within themselves at Kennebunkport. I think that's a really good thing for the country and can be a game changer for fundraising for Republicans, because there's a lot of people who want to give money to the Kennedys just because they're the Kennedys. And if Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is at Trump's side, we have a good chance of getting that money.
Yeah. Now, the one thing that we do not know, and I do not know, and I think that RFK Jr. may have alluded to it, but he didn't. I don't think that he actually gave any pronouncement on it. I guess he'll let her do it. We don't know what Nicole Shanahan's role in all of this is going to be. Although I can tell you, because I follow her on Twitter, she is out saying, like, this isn't the end, guys. This is a great thing. Robert and I have not traded any of our values or any of our policy positions. They're all still there, but we've made a partnership with someone that is going to allow us to actually enact some of them. That is a massive, massive win for all the things that we hold near and dear here on the Crusade Radio Network that we talk about almost every day when it comes to regenerative farming, when it comes to the response to COVID, when it came to the vaccine mandates, when it comes to the health of children, when it comes to the content and the character of the food, when it comes to the big ag and the enemies that are out there, when it comes to the never-ending wars. These are all this is a great alliance here, and I don't think you can underestimate this. And I just want to reiterate something. The guy that they said was going to bring an end to the Republican Party, was going to destroy it, just expanded the tent by a third.
Hello?
She's still there.
No, sure, Magna, you're still there?
Yes, I'm sorry, you cut out right before I heard what you were saying.
Oh, just expanded they said Trump was going to bring the party, and he did bring the party.
Mm-hmm.
He did bring the party of Mitt Romney to an end. That part,
yeah.
The McCain wing of the Democrat Party is going to come to an end. But there is a new day, and at the end of the day, if you're looking at political parties, which one came out of its conventions and now today as clearly the winner?
Well, I think the Republicans, and it's interesting because the Democrat convention had a great level of stage managing. It was definitely fun to watch. It was interesting, but it didn't do anything politically. I remember watching the RNC convention and feeling something, and that's not just because I'm a Republican. I think I can look at both conventions and see which one elicits emotions. There was nothing captivating about the DNC. It felt like a Democrat beauty pageant. And it felt like that increasingly over the years. I think back to the one in 2008, that felt like something. They were doing something. But increasingly, it just felt like a beauty pageant. And I think the Republicans have finally figured out that they cannot win alone. You can't just have evangelical Christians. The country's too nuanced for that. If you have a libertarian aspect, a religious aspect, and you're willing to talk to people who have single issues like crypto people, like seed oil people, you have a chance at winning. I just don't see what the Democrat convention did for Kamala Harris. I don't think it got her anything, which is really on her because the convention is built around the candidate.
Okay, I want to ask another question here. Somebody brings this up in one of our chat rooms, and I think it's a good question. They have to get at some level to carry out the agenda that RFK Jr. laid out for the Trump administration, should it come to fruition. They're going to have to get Congress on board with this. Are the Republican leaders in Congress who are still married to some of these big pharma, big ag people? I'm just wondering how does Trump break this to them? Look, guys, it's not going to happen. You're going to have to find new ways to fundraise. You're going to have to find new ways because we're going to do this. We're going to make our country healthy again. How do you think that plays out with Republicans and in leadership in Congress?
Well, he has to say, if you don't do it, I'm going to expose what you did during COVID. I mean, he's got to play hardball. He's got to expose or threaten to expose the amount of money that was made. Every now and then I see Pfizer has lost money, and I laugh. I'm like, well, you could have only raked in trillions of dollars for so long. He's got to say, I will expose all of you. I will do an expose in this government, and I'll let Rand Paul lead it, because now we talk to libertarians. And I think if he does that, they'll give him what he wants. He's got to be willing to blackmail them to some extent. And that's where we are in American politics, and it's sad. But Democrats are willing to do it. I mean, Democrats stood by Bob Menendez for like 10 years while he was doing and selling all sorts of national secrets to the Egyptians. So if Democrats are willing to do that, Trump's got to be willing to blackmail them.
You know, it's something you just brought up a great point. Mike Church here with Magdalene Rose, our campaign affairs correspondent here live on the Crusade Radio Network. A historic afternoon, and I'm so glad and so thrilled and happy that so many hundred. I wish it was hundreds of thousands of you, but I'll take hundreds upon hundreds of you who have been tuning in all afternoon. You just brought something up, Magdalene, and I think that this is a great point that needs to be made, and is something that we can look forward to. Now, the most important guy in the United States Senate, if Robert Francis Kennedy is made HHS secretary, or whatever it is that Trump makes him, or maybe they create it, or maybe puts him at head of agriculture, or whatever it is, who then becomes the most important United States senator? Rand Paul. Rand Paul becomes the big ally in the U.S. Senate. Because he's already down with almost all of, outside of abortion, I think, of almost all of the Kennedy agenda. But he is a Republican. This makes Rand Paul now a leadership figure in the Senate, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely. And not only that, I love Rand Paul's particular style of talking about the nonsense that goes on in Congress. I don't know if you follow his Steps to This Rant right around Christmas. I'm a huge fan of them, where he finds out that we spent like $300,000 to find out if iguanas like sushi. It's those kinds of things. And him in leadership, I mean, it's the ultimate pushback against Mitch McConnell. Rand Paul, and also the fact that Rand Paul has been shot at, he's been attacked by neighbors, mobs have tried to kill him. This is a man who not only is a libertarian and not only is also pro-life, which is important, but understands the less need for violence. And that is completely necessary right now. Rand Paul understands Republicans will be under siege if this country's not run correctly and Republicans aren't protected. That's invaluable. So he will be an important figure, but he will also protect Republicans in a way that people in the Senate and House have not in the past.
Do you think that this upsets the balance of power where Mike Johnson is currently the speaker? There is that Freedom Caucus, and there is the remnants of the old Republican leadership, the RLC, that remains in the House. Is there going to be a new race for speaker now?
I don't think so. What I like about Mike Johnson is he's very much a company man. I feel like he sort of like goes along with it. I have no doubt that he is a social conservative. I don't think anyone has any doubt over that. So I think that he is a good person to have in that position because he's not trying to be president. He's not super partisan within the Republican caucus. Him in that position has been good for Republicans. I think you and I have been disappointed in his lackluster legislative effort, but he's been good at sort of keeping the peace. Him in that position, Rand Paul leading in the Senate. Even if Rand Paul's a deputy in the Senate, everyone knows who has the real power.
Yeah, and I also think that Mike Lee becomes a big asset in the Senate too. We're going to send you back. We're going to play the rest of the Trump campaign message in Las Vegas, and we will rejoin you, folks. The event was scheduled to go off at 3 p.m. Central Time in Arizona. That is obviously not going to happen. So I think that they'll probably move it closer to 5, maybe even 6, because Trump has to get from Las Vegas to Glendale, Arizona, which is not that far. But we will rejoin this. Trad Pat will be our guy on the ground. We'll get Magdalene back. We'll get a lot of reaction to what's been done here today. Magdalene, I want to thank you for being a part of this very historic day, and we'll see you later on this evening.
Yep, sounds good.
All right, folks, before I part company with you, let me play you the most important 2 minutes and 51 seconds, or I think one of the most important, from RFK Jr.'s speech this afternoon.
Are we allowing this to happen to our children? These are the most precious assets that we have in this country. How can we let this happen to them? About 18% of American teens now have fatty liver disease. That's like 1 out of every 5. That disease, when I was a kid, only affected late-stage alcoholics who were elderly. Cancer rates are skyrocketing in the young and the old. Young adult cancers are up 79%. 1 in 4 American women is on antidepressant medication. 40% of teens have a mental health diagnosis. And 15% of high schoolers are on Adderall, and 500,000 children on SSRIs. So what's causing this suffering? I'll name 2 culprits. First, and the worst, is ultra-processed food. About 70% of American children's diet is ultra-processed. That means industrial manufactured in a factory. These foods consist primarily of processed sugar, ultra-processed grains, and seed oils. Laboratory scientists who many of them formerly worked for the cigarette industry, which purchased all the big food companies in the 1970s and 80s, deployed thousands of scientists to figure out new chemicals to make the food more addictive. And these ingredients didn't exist 100 years ago. Humans aren't biologically adapted to eat them. Hundreds of these chemicals are now banned in Europe, but ubiquitous in American processed foods. The second culprit is toxic chemicals in our food, our medicine, and our environment. Pesticides, food additives, pharmaceutical drugs, and toxic waste permeate every cell of our bodies. The assault on our children's cells and hormones is unrelenting. To name just one problem, many of these chemicals increase estrogen because young children are ingesting so many of these hormone disruptors. America's puberty rate is now occurring at age 10 to 13, which is 6 years earlier than girls were reaching puberty in 1900. Our country has the earliest puberty rates of any continent on the earth. And no, this isn't because of better nutrition. This is not normal. Breast cancer is also estrogen-driven, and it now strikes 1 in 8 women. We are mass poisoning all of our children and our adults.
So, folks, that's just a little part of what was said earlier today by RFK Jr. We're going to put together a highlight reel. I'm going to send you back now to President Trump live in Vegas. And for the entirety of his remarks, you can pick them up right here on the Crusade Radio Network. All of you that are watching on the YouTube and on the Roku, the broadcast is not over. We will begin a new broadcast tonight. When this is concluded, when the talk at the restaurant about the taxes on tips is concluded in Las Vegas, we will go back to regularly scheduled programming, and then we will come back for Trump's announcement. And we are told RFK Jr.'s appearance tonight, his first campaign appearance with the Trump campaign, it's going to be electric. It's going to be on fire. It's going to be historical. And you'll get it all right here on the Crusade Radio Network. I'm Mike Church, and if you want to support our work, like our YouTube channel, subscribe to it. If you want to support our work, like our Twitter feed, follow me and follow at Veritas Radio Net. If you want to support our work and you want more of this, you want us to be around during the rest of this campaign, we want to be around, make a one-time donation at crusadechannel.com/donate. You want to support our work? Join us. We have memberships. They're very affordable. And join our crusade. Go to crusadechannel.com/offer. Here is President Trump live in Vegas. Well, live moments ago, but about a 20-minute delay. Well,
You gotta pause the remote.
well, no, I've got it over here because they're going to cut away. I got the whole thing here on
I got you ready to go.
the C-SPAN. Okay, well, I'll just stay with you for a second here. Damn, the internet screws up everything. We'll pick this up live as soon as the page reloads. And again, this is Trump live from Las Vegas. At a restaurant where he was going to give a talk earlier today. We played the first 3 minutes because I wanted to hear what he was going to say about the endorsement of RFK Jr. He almost made it sound like it was just an endorsement. Some guy just said, "Oh, it's a great deal, Bobby," and he even called him Bobby. That tells me that they're having great actual private conversations. Okay, here, I think I have it now.
I'm just talking to Javier. You got thousands of people outside on the street. They want to get into your restaurant, Javier. We're going to have to expand it.
have to make a lot of tacos now.
You're right. You're right. And thank you very much. I want to thank everybody for being here. We just had a very nice endorsement from RFK Jr., Bobby. And I'll be talking about that. We're heading out right after this. We're going to be going to Arizona. We'll be talking about that and a lot of other things too. But I just want to thank everybody. And I want to thank Bobby. That was very nice. That was really very nice. That's big. He's a great guy, respected by everybody. So thank you all for this incredible welcome we're getting. And I'm going to tell Javier the next time we do this together, he's going to give me a little light up here. Can you give me a little light so you can read this little speech? But you know what it does? It makes you speak a little bit less, so that's okay too. But I do want to thank you all, and I want to thank Javier. This is a fantastic restaurant, and the reputation is as good as it gets, as good as it gets. And I'm going to come here next time to eat. Is that okay? I will be doing that too. We have with us Lieutenant Governor Stavros Anthony, wherever Stavros is. Thank you very much, Stavros. That's an honor. We'll see you soon, okay? Thank you. That's really an honor. Great guy, too. And Nevada GOP Chairman Michael McDonald. Michael? And he's very happy about the no tax on tips because he was the first one that presented after the young beautiful waitress that suggested. I said, "What do you think of it, Michael?" He said, "I think it's a great idea." But we've come here today to talk about the biggest promise I think that the restaurant workers have had in a long time, and that's no tax on tips. And in our case, we mean it. Somebody that I know just copied it, but you know that's not going to happen. If you're a restaurant worker, a bartender, a hospitality worker, a caddy, a barber, a mover, a driver of any kind, or anyone else, you rely on a lot of tip income, hopefully a lot. But when I win in November, hopefully we're going to win. We're going to turn our country around. We're going to make America great again. We're going to let you keep 100% of your tip income and not be harassed. And just so you understand, the other side, Kamala, have you ever heard of her? Kamala? Nobody ever heard of her before. She lost in the first round. She was the first one out. It's a weird thing. He got 14 million votes, and he's sitting on a beach angry as hell. And she got no votes, and she's running. So you explained that to me. But the United States is home to an estimated 5.5 million workers whose livelihoods depend on tip income. And they work with their hands and their talent, their sweat and their skill. And they are really skilled people, and they're great people. They're people that have been with me always, and I'm with them. I'm doing them a big favor. Nobody ever heard of this concept before, and it's something that makes a lot of sense. As soon as I heard it, I said, let's do it. And then they copied us a couple of months later, but I don't think anybody's buying it. I don't think anybody's buying it. It's like last night, the speech. She made 26 different things that were lies. She lied, but that's okay because a lot of people lie. They'll do anything to get elected, but she lied about, she's increasing taxes, I'm decreasing taxes, and she put it the other way around. Perhaps she misspoke. Perhaps. Nearly 2/3 of the workers are women, and an estimated 700,000 single mothers nationwide rely on tip income to support their children. These are some of the best and hardest working people in America, and when I'm president, you are the ones I will be fighting for, and I'll be fighting for you very hard every single day. Kamala Harris is now pretending to endorse my policy. She's got a lot of other policies. She's a copycat. She's a flip-flopper. You know what a flip? She's the greatest flip-flopper in history. She went from communism to capitalism in about 2 weeks. But in fact, Kamala cast the tie-breaking vote to hire 87,000 new IRS agents to go after your tip income. They're going after it in a lot of ways, so I don't know what they're doing now. This has happened with a lot of industries. When we come out with something, they immediately fold. But you know that after the election, if something horrible happened, which is always a possibility, especially the way they cheat. But if something horrible happened, you know that you'd go right back and you'd never see anything about no tax on tips. You know that. Under Kamala and Crooked Joe Biden, where is he? Where's Joe? What happened to Joe? He's on a beach someplace. He's angry. The IRS has imposed costly and burdensome new reporting requirements on restaurant and other employers, and these employers are great people. They're great people. They really work hard, like Javier. They work very hard, and they do an incredible job. And this is going to make their life a little bit easier because, frankly, for them it's a lot better, too, when they have happy employees that are making a little more money and just do a better job. People like Javier are very happy. He was happy to hear about this. Every restaurant owner is happy to hear about this. But they're trying to squeeze every penny out of this tip income the government is. And now they're not going to be able to do that. We're going to get this done very fast, too, by the way. Kamala also sponsored legislation to blow up the tip system entirely, which would inflict financial calamity on food servers and bartenders in Las Vegas and all across America. They have bills pending and things pending and resolutions pending and special orders pending where they're going after your tips. I don't know what they're going to do with that. Are they supposed to be dropping? I assume they're going to be dropping all that stuff at least until after the election. They'll bring it back after the election. Kamala supports a bill to eliminate the federal tip credit, which would force restaurants to impose large service charges on diners, meaning customers will not leave tips at all, and you'll be stuck with a minimum wage or whatever you might be making. This is something that they're forcing. I will never let that happen. Under the Trump administration, you'll keep your tips, and restaurant workers will keep all of your hard-earned money. I met this incredible young woman she was standing behind the counter. I walked into a restaurant, whatever it may be. What was that restaurant? That Chick-fil-A, right? Very religious owner and a great guy, and it's good stuff. And she saw me and she said, President Trump, and she gave me the biggest hug. She said, you saved my college. And she loved that college, right? And you love me, and I love you too. I do actually. But it was like instant chemistry, right?
Yes, immediate. I told them earlier, we're best friends.
Yeah. They didn't know I was coming. You know, we do that surprise. I guess we do that for certain reasons, like security and things. We don't want to broadcast it too much. But I walked in and she grabbed me and I grabbed her. But I saved her college. That's the historically black colleges and universities. And she loved her college. She loved her college. She thought it was good. I said, do you really like it? Was it good? Go ahead, give it a little poke.
I love the illustrious Park Atlanta University.
Do you see? And she really did. It was great to see that, as opposed to, it was okay. She thought it was great. So I'll see you in a little while. Thank you, honey. Thank you very much for being here. We'll all be joined today by Nicole Williams, the mother of a 6-year-old member of the Culinary Union and a bartender. Can we get the Culinary Union to maybe vote for Trump? Because, they're great people. They're always have a head of, like a Democrat, the head, even if the Republican's better, and a lot of the Republicans aren't better, but I'm a lot better, and I'm the one that got this thing done. And so if we could speak to the head guy, let him be nice and easy, just relax. We're going to win. The state is looking very good. We just got a poll. We're leading by a lot. But we want to get the Culinary Union. How many members of the Culinary Union are here? Oh, you have a lot. I can tell you have a lot. But I think a lot of them, we had a poll done, and a lot of them are voting for us, I can tell you right now. But people that depend on tip income for our family. So, Nicole, if I could ask you to come up and say a few words. Hi, Nicole.
Hi, Mr.
Please.
Trump.
Thank you, darling. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This is the honor of my life to be up here with my favorite president. And his no tax on tips policy is going to help my family. It's going to bring immediate relief to my pocketbook and my 7 kids. And all of you here who have children and families to take care of, this is going to be a great thing for all of us. So let's get out and vote for President Trump. Let's win Nevada for President Trump. Let's get out there. Register all your friends and family. Tell everybody about this policy.
Thank you, Nicole. Thank you very much. Very nice. That's great. Thank you very much, Nicole. Thank you. I'll bet she does a great job, too. I'll bet you do a great job. Do you have any doubt about Nicole? I don't think so, right? You love it, right? You love doing it?
I love it.
That's great. I can see it. Thank you very much. We're also have a little bit of a special announcement. Our host, Javier, began in the restaurant business as a dishwasher, worked his way up to being a chef. Now he owns an entire family of Mexican restaurants in Las Vegas and the Las Vegas area. How many restaurants are there? How many? 5. This guy's got a lot of cash. That's fantastic. It's a great story. We love the Hispanic people, and the Hispanic people love us. He was just saying, he's not a big fan of what's happening on the other side. They'll destroy our country. We'll end up in a depression like in 1929 if they get in with what they're proposing. Last month, Joe Biden stopped at one of Javier's restaurants to tout his support in the Latino community. And, Joe walked in. It's like not the most. It wasn't too exciting when he walked in. He didn't know where the hell he was. What kind of a restaurant? Is this Italian? He says, is this a French restaurant? Looks like a French restaurant. And, we have to focus on her because he's gonzo, so we'll focus on her. She's terrible. She's worse than he is. By the way, he's the worst president in the history of the United States. Jimmy Carter is very happy because he is considered to be a brilliant president by comparison. He's a very happy man. And she's considered to be the worst vice president in history. I don't know who the hell did that. If they do polls and they do studies, she's considered to be the worst vice president in history. 6 weeks ago, they were laughing at her. She was a joke. And now she got the nomination. She didn't get any votes, but she got the nomination. Explain that one. But I understand that Javier has something he would like to say about that, and so I'll ask Javier to come up and say a couple of words. Thank you. About the meeting you had with Joe.
Oh, thank you for being here, President Donald Trump. Me and my family really appreciate that you guys give us the opportunity to host this event, so important. And I was telling them earlier, before you got here, that I came when Ronald Reagan was the president. And you know what? I really miss those times. So I need you to please make America great again.
Thanks, Javier. Thank you. And we will. We will. You got a good sample of
My daughter over there,
yes.
and she agrees with you 100%.
Good.
My daughter over there.
It's a beautiful daughter.
She really thinks that you are cuter than Kamala.
Oh, I see. She agrees on that. Well, that's a good thing to agree on. That's very nice. Thank you very much, Sonny. Appreciate it. Great job you're doing. So thank you to Javier, to everybody under my leadership. Our Latino American community has prospered like, as you know, and as he knows, prospered like never before. Yeah. And you know, we're winning. We won places. The governor of Texas called me. The last election, we won every border town along the border, and they're almost entirely Hispanic. And we won all of them. We won the votes. First time, they said, since Reconstruction. So I said, when you say Reconstruction, you know, that's a little complicated word in a sense, because it means a lot of things to a lot of people. But I said, that means Civil War. Is that what you're referring to? That's right. Since the Civil War, that's never happened. And we did it twice. We did it in 16, and we did even better in 20. We actually did much better in 20 than we did in 16. But lots of strange things happen in life, right? But we're doing better now than either of those two. There's more spirit. I mean, you look at outside in the street, how many people are out there. And I only hope they stick around when I leave and they come into your restaurant. You'll never be able to serve them. But just too many people. But you're going to see. But Hispanic American household incomes hit an all-time high under the Trump administration. Hispanic American unemployment rate hit the lowest it's ever hit, lowest ever. Hispanic American poverty rate reached a record low, the lowest number ever. And by the way, it's now inched up very substantially. And yesterday, Javier, they did something that was terrible. It was just found out. They reported that 818,000 jobs were here that weren't. They were fake. They reported fake jobs, and they were going to announce that after November 5th, the most important day in the history of our country, the election. They were going to report it after, but there was a whistleblower, somebody leaked it. There was a leaker, a friendly leaker, a patriot leaker, leaked it, and that's not a revision. You know, that usually they call that a revision, like there's, 10,000 jobs. This is 818. I think it was the biggest number, certainly in memory. 818,000 fake jobs they reported. They don't exist. Total fake jobs. And this is what we're dealing with. And that's at a big number. That's a big, big downward number, in other words, on their reporting. But they reported these jobs, and now they've had to revise it and take them off the books. More than 1.5 million Hispanic Americans were lifted out of poverty during my administration, and the household wealth of the median Hispanic family grew by 65%. That's a lot, Javier. 65. It makes sense, right? Now it's heading south, by the way, just in case but we'll get it back up fast. The Hispanic American high school graduation rate reached an all-time high, and home ownership among Hispanics also hit a record high. And for working families and small businesses like this one, this is not a small business, this is a big business. but we'll call it a small business for tax purposes, okay? We delivered the largest tax cuts and regulation cuts in the history of our country. We achieved energy independence, and we built the greatest economy any time in the history of the world. It was the strongest economy anybody had ever seen. Under Kamala, it has been one disaster after another. Take a look at the border. You want to really see a disaster. I was there yesterday. What a disaster. After Kamala cast the tie-breaking votes on the bills that caused the worst inflation in decades, the Harris price hikes have cost the typical Nevada family. And you take a look. So the Nevada family spent $32,000 more under this horrible regime of people that don't know what the hell they're doing. Now Kamala is promising communist price controls on food. Her plan will cause catastrophic inflation, shortages of rationing. The restaurant industry will be obliterated. And I say welcome to 1929. Do you know what 1929 was? You don't want to know, right? You don't want to know, but that's where they're headed if they do what they're planning. Kamala is also pledging the largest tax hikes in American history, and Las Vegas hospitality industry would actually never recover from that. It's the largest tax hikes in history. And, you know, you heard her words last night. She doesn't talk about that. Do you notice they talked, I guess you mentioned the Trump name many, many times, like 19 or 21 or something. She didn't mention the border. She didn't mention inflation. She didn't mention the bad economy. She didn't mention crime. She didn't mention any of the things that she's supposed to be mentioning. But she mentioned Trump 21 times or some crazy thing. And she mentioned thank you about 50 times. Did you see the beginning? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I said, what the hell is wrong with her? But then she recovered. She did much better. But she didn't tell anything. She didn't say anything. She talked about her family, how beautiful San Francisco was. I put out a note. I said, well, the word "was" is very important because what the hell happened? Under her, as district attorney, she destroyed San Francisco, and then as the Attorney General, she ruined the state of California with her stupid policies. But she was showing her beautiful life in San Francisco, and everybody was joking. That was before she destroyed it. She's supported the idea of a 70 to 80% tax hike. I don't think the man behind me will be happy. You wouldn't mind paying 80% in taxes, would you? What the hell? He says, whatever's good for America, right? 80% tax rate, and now she's even pushing a tax on unrealized capital gains. In other words, the appraisers are going to make a lot of money, which will soon be applied to small business owners, and you will be forced to sell your restaurant immediately, and the new owner won't do the job, and this restaurant will be closed. But we're not going to let that happen, Javier. We're going to make it bigger, better, stronger, just like the country. So this is really beyond socialist, because she's a socialist, but she's really a Marxist. A Marxist is a step beyond. Remember how you said at the State of the Union, we will not have socialism in America. We will never be a socialist country. I was right. We skipped over socialism. We're down to communism, okay? I was right about it, though. I like to be right. Thank you. I like that woman. Where are you? I like that. She said, you're always right. But this is beyond socialism. This is the beginning of communism, and it really is, and we can't let that happen. You look at Venezuela, you look at some of these countries that we all know so well, and what happened to them can happen to us. It's just a bigger version. That's where we're headed if this group gets elected. But we'll not let Kamala and the group turn America into a communist nation. We're not going to let it happen. We can't let it happen. I'll cut taxes, and what we're doing is we're cutting taxes, regulations. We're going to defeat inflation, rapidly bring prices down, and make America affordable again. It's not affordable. People can't buy, as Javier said before, they can't buy sneakers. They can't buy anything. To help seniors, we will have no tax on Social Security benefits. That's a big deal. I don't know. I'm trying to figure for restaurant workers, and all workers, tip workers, it's no tax on tips, but the Social Security, no tax, because they've driven them out of business. These people have suffered, and they've done things the right way. They've saved, and then the inflation destroyed them. And we're going to have no tax on Social Security benefits, and that's a big thing, and it's very important. Just as important is what I said before about the no tax on tips. Kamala wants to bring sky-high California energy prices to the rest of the country, and they have just destroyed California. First time ever, more people left California than came in. They've never had that before because they have the best weather, the most beautiful land. Everything is so good, but they have a terrible governor. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing, but he's got a great line of bullshit, you know. He's got a good line of stuff. We're doing great in California. You know the U-Haulets and the trailers and stuff? They go to Texas, Florida, other states, right? And they don't know what to do. They only go one way. They want to try and get them. They want to try and get them back. They have a hard time bringing them back. They don't know what to do. But under the extremist net zero energy policies, what you call them, the extremist, the radical people, they're really hurting our country and ultimately destroying our country. The environmental extremists, we call them. Nevada electricity prices have already increased by 50%. So it's 50%. Do you see them going up there? I mean, you see that? They've gone up by 50% over a very short period of time, and I'll unleash American energy, and we'll cut your prices in half. We'll be able to get your energy prices cut in half, and that goes for the whole nation. That's ridiculous that they've increased that much, and you see that. Wow, that's terrible. I'll deliver universal school choice, letting your child go to the public, private, religious, charter school of your choice, the family's choice. And there's something, school choice is a big deal. It's a big deal. Everybody wants school choice. And I'll support our police and stop the crime wave that was caused by this woman. What she's done on the border, she was the border czar. She doesn't want to talk about it. She said, I'm not the border czar. For 4 years, she's the border czar. Now she's not the border czar all of a sudden. You know why? Because people are coming in at levels that nobody's ever seen before. They're coming in by the millions, and they're coming from jails and prisons. They're slightly different meaning. They're coming from mental institutions and insane asylums. They're emptying out so many of their cities of criminals, and they're busing them into the good old USA. They're busing the worst gang members, the worst drug dealers, terrorists, and they're bringing them in and dropping them here, and they're saying, if you come back, we're going to kill you. We're going to kill you if you come back, or we'll give you the death penalty, but we're going to kill you if you come back. So they're dropping their criminals here. They're emptying their jails and dumping everybody, and these are tough people too, and they're dumping them into our country. And you take a look at the prison populations all over the world. We're not just talking about South America, all over the world, the Congo in Africa. Many people are coming out of the Congo, and they're coming from jails in the Congo. So their jails are being emptied, the mental institutions are being emptied, and they're all coming to the USA. They'll be customers very shortly of Javier's fine restaurant. What's happening is horrible. It's horrible. And they're destroying our country. And we're going to do the largest deportation in the history of America. We have no choice. We have no choice. And you see the death. You see the death and destruction they're causing. I was at the border yesterday with some people whose families were just obliterated by these horrible, horrible people that have been allowed to come in. And remember, terrorists are coming in at levels we've never seen before. Only bad things can happen. So I'll secure the border, keep radical Islamic terrorists out of our country, and we will do something that's very important. I will prevent World War III. You have World War III is on the cusp. You take a look at what's happening. Biden didn't have a clue what he did with Russia and Ukraine, what that happened. That's a war that should have never started. If I were president, zero chance that would have happened. It would have never, and it didn't for 4 years. Same thing with Israel. October 7th would have never happened. And you know what else? you wouldn't have had that horror show, the most embarrassing day in our history, Afghanistan. And very importantly, you wouldn't have had inflation, because inflation was caused by energy. Now it's caused by everything. And the prices are so high that people are being driven out of business, including a lot of Hispanic people, a lot of black people. What's happening with the black population is they're losing their jobs to the people that are pouring across the border. The black population is being decimated. You wait till you see the real numbers that come. They're losing their jobs because Biden and Harris are allowing millions of people to come into our country, and they're taking black people's jobs, African American jobs. They're taking those jobs, and a lot of those jobs are Hispanic jobs too. And the next thing that's going to be hit, I can tell you union leaders, the unions are going to be hit really, really hard. So I just want to end by saying that November 5th is a very important day. I believe it will go down as the most important day in the history of our country. That means you have to vote. It's going to be a big vote. If we win this state, if we win Nevada, we're going to win something that's going to be very, very special. We're going to win the whole thing. If we win Nevada, we're going to win the whole thing. And I don't know how the hell we can lose it. I've never seen such support, the support we have. So to Javier and his family, it's nice. Thank you. Thank you very much. I like that group over there. You know, they're a little bit frisky, but I like you very much. So I just want to thank everybody here. You're incredible people. I'm behind you 100%. November 5th, you're going to vote a little earlier than that, but whatever you got to vote. Make sure your vote is secure, because remember, they cheat like hell. Make sure, and again, we win this state, we win the whole thing, and we're going to turn our country around. So thank you very much. Thanks very much, Javier. Thanks.
And so, folks, another great talk by President Trump. Recapping the events of today, if you missed them, RFK Jr. endorsing President Trump in an emotional 1 hour and 12-minute long speech where he poured his heart out, gave the reasons why, and also revealed that, hang on just a second here. He also revealed that he anticipates he's going to have a place in the cabinet. And he talked about agriculture policy. He talked about medical policy. He told the story of how they came together and how Trump greeted him with open arms, and they set a meeting up. And the rest, as they say, is history. We're going to take a little break here because it's just me here holding the fort down. But we will be back this evening when the cameras start rolling in Glendale, Arizona, where we are told that Bobby Kennedy will actually campaign with President Trump, and he will make the official introduction and endorsement of Bobby Kennedy, and they will get the chance to campaign and to talk together. A historic day of epic proportions here, folks, that you cannot possibly, I don't think we could possibly grasp just how big this is. I can tell you right now at the DNC, they are panicking. Panic is now set in, and now they're going to try and undo what they did by going to the family and what have you and putting pressure on Bobby Kennedy to try to make him recant. But you could hear it in his voice today. He is committed to this endeavor, and I think we're all going to be the better off for it. We're going to talk a lot more about this tonight, and of course here on our show on the Crusade Radio Network, which we do here every day. So thanks for being with us and being part of history. Yes, we recorded the whole thing. It will all be available free of charge to anyone that wants to watch or listen to it, because it's what we do here on the Crusade Radio Network. You want to support us? Go and make a donation right now. Go do it right now. crusadechannel.com/donate. We'll be back at somewhere around 6 p.m. Central, I'm guessing, 7 on the East Coast, for the historic campaign event in Glendale, Arizona. I am Mike Church. It's been my honor and my pleasure to be your host today. I'm signing off. We're going to send you back to our regular scheduled programming, and we'll see you this evening for another historic event from Glendale.